All right, we'll get started here at 6 o'clock or soon thereafter. This is Director Susan Bernard. I'm the IT director with the school district. I want to just give you a little orientation to the tool that you're using this evening to make sure that you can participate as much as you would like. So we're using Zoom tonight. The first half of the presentation, hopefully we'll be answering many of the questions that you've had from last week or that you have in mind right now. But when the time comes about halfway through the presentation, you can use the Q&A section down at the bottom to post your question, or you can upvote someone else's question by clicking on the thumbs up so that we can prioritize the questions and understand what your priorities are so that we can look at how to answer those efficiently. Those answers will come on our FAQ website after this evening's session. So looking for that feedback, but also know it will not be likely answered live unless it's part of the presentation, and hopefully much of that is. If you are having any trouble technically, you can use the chat and that will get to some assistance. The other piece, if you could go back one slide, please, is the interpretation. And that's really important because we want to make sure that we're reaching our community. There's a little globe at the bottom of the menu, and it says interpretation. If you click on that, if you would like to hear this presentation in Spanish, it will be live translated in Spanish. And to do that, you'll click on interpretation and then click on Spanish. And if you would like to mute the English, you can then click on mute original audio and you can hear the full presentation in Spanish. And I wonder, is there someone that's on that might be able to interpret what I just said, especially about the interpretation for our attendees before we launch?
En la barra de abajo, usted va a encontrar un mundito, o sea, el icono de un mundo que se puede seleccionar para escuchar la interpretación de esta presentación. Así que si tiene algún problema en encontrar este icono o en conectarse, por favor, cuéntenos en el chat.
Thank you, Mr. Blackburn. And we will go ahead and begin at 6:02. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Ricky Smith and Dr. McCall.
Thank you so much, Director Bernard, and thank you again to all of you. I wish to welcome you who have joined us this evening. We are so glad that you have either joined us for the first time or are returning following our first community meeting last Tuesday at 6 p.m. And I want to begin this evening with a statement of gratitude for all of you and for the ways in which you have put your trust and provided us with support as we are doing this collective work. Especially because we are working to do what is right for our community's most precious resource, which is your children, our students. I wish to reaffirm that returning to in-person instruction is our highest priority. We know that children thrive when they are in our schools, not just because of the instruction that they receive, but also because they are able to access the social emotional support services, nutritional meal support, and access medical care as needed. That said, as superintendent, I have an obligation to first protect the safety and well-being of staff, students, and the families they go home to. Today, unfortunately, Oregon crossed a threshold that no state would want to cross, as we recorded 14 COVID-19 related deaths for one day, the highest daily death count to date. Guided by that obligation, as well as guidance received from the Oregon Health Authority and the governor today, TTSD will start the year online for the first 9 weeks. We will follow the guidance provided through the state's metrics and actively monitor our local COVID-19 status along with the test positivity rates in Washington County as we make decisions for instruction beyond that first 9 weeks. Specific timelines as to when decisions will be made will be communicated in the coming weeks as we continue to build our operational blueprint for reentry. As of today, we will move forward focused on creating a plan that offers an optimal instructional experience with 2 options for students. The hybrid comprehensive distance learning, which provide teacher-paced instruction with common schedules that are either given within the classroom or schedules that are followed and delivered online, depending on the conditions, COVID conditions in the community. And the second option, which is 100% online, self-paced with teacher support and monitoring. We are working to gather those students by grade bands as soon as we know how many will be opting into the 100% so that they will have peer interactions as if they were in a regular classroom. Next slide, please. With that, I also want to share with you updates regarding when we are able to return in classroom. That ODE is now requiring in our guidance that all students ages 5 and up wear masks during the time that they are in building. There are accommodations and exceptions outlined in the guidance, and those will be forthcoming. Additionally, we expect ongoing changes to the ODE guidance as they refine the metrics that we received today, and we get greater clarity relative to exceptions, one of which that was shared today relative to metrics for bringing kinder through third grade students into brick and mortar. And we have asked for additional guidance regarding when and how to implement those guidances. With that, again, I wish to offer my profound thanks. This evening, you are going to hear from our teams, both in terms of the hybrid model as well as distance learning. And I would reinforce that the hybrid model, the schedules that you see this evening, will occur online or in the classroom. It is only the modality based on the safety conditions, the COVID metrics that are within our community. And I wish to also ask for your continued support within our community to follow the guidelines as set forth by the governor for wearing masks, washing hands, maintaining physical distances, as well as limiting in-person gatherings of 10 or more. And with that, I would ask for the next slide, and I'll turn this evening over to Dr. Lisa McCall, our Assistant Superintendent. Dr. McCall?
Okay. Welcome all. We appreciate you joining us this evening. First, I would like to thank our plan development teams. And during the time over several months, beginning in June, we have distinct teams that have been following the ODE, the Oregon Department of Education guidelines to reopen schools. And these teams have kept, first and foremost, your child, your children, our students in mind. And for that, I want to thank them. I want to, next slide, share with you, here are our teams. So for the distance learning and hybrid team has been developed by levels, high school, middle, and elementary. And as you can see in blue, the makeup of those teams has included a number of our TTSD teaching staff, in addition to specialists, teachers on special assignment, and administration. So thank you to that high school planning team for the number of continuous hours that you have been planning. Next, our middle school planning team included, again, a number of teaching staff, in addition to clarified staff and our administration. And these teams were focusing on keeping student safety in mind while crafting what it would look like for a daily schedule, either in hybrid and 100% online. Next team was our elementary planning team. Again, much thanks to our teachers, our administrators, and other TTSD staff. And then next slide. We had an online curriculum team with the focus of vetting online courseware to be implemented during hybrid and online. And that team spent many hours looking at curriculum, which also included a number of our teaching staff as well, and to make recommendations to decide which curriculum and online platform we would be using in hybrid and 100% online. And then next slide. So our public and mental health teams, they have been working on safety and health protocols in partnership with Washington County Public Health. And we've had several mental health teams that are working on social emotional learning and providing mental health services for students who are struggling in our new, in this new environment. For that, we thank those teams. Next slide. So for tonight's community session, here are our outcomes. What we want you to come away with is clarification of student participation, and here are the options that we are providing. A hybrid, which is that teacher-paced versus 100% online, which is self-paced. You'll learn more about that. Then also, we want to share with you what your child's experience would be like in a hybrid model. We know that we're going to start with online 100, but again, we still want you to come away with understanding what your child's experience would be like in a hybrid. And then we would also like to share with you the timeline for signing up for 100% online or hybrid. Again, our next presenter is Director Todd Robson. Next slide.
Good evening, everybody. I am Todd Robson, Director of Teaching and Learning, and you'll hear from Director Susan Bernard, who is our Director of Technology tonight as well. And I want to take us through, if we move to the next slide, I want to talk about and share the differences between hybrid and 100% online. And the reason, again, I want to emphasize that we're doing this tonight, knowing that we're starting off in a distance learning distance learning situation, it's important to note that knowing what the hybrid is very important in that it is going to be what kids will experience if that's the choice made, but they'll be experiencing it virtually in terms of their schedules and working in their cohorts virtually. And choosing the 100% online, that option would mean it is that self-paced programming. So let's go through this. This is set up to hopefully answer quite a few questions that came in this past week, but also know that we are continuing to capture and take in questions and working diligently to make sure that those are part of our FAQ that you can connect with, and then wrapping up next week too with our final presentation to community. So we're going to continue to answer the questions as things develop. So if you note here, there are two columns essentially. You see option 1, hybrid, option 2, 100% online school. So let's move through this. I'm going to start with the columns. Let's actually walk through here. On the left, you'll notice some headings. And what I want to do is just move your eyes to the note that's highlighted, and just know that special ed services, English language development services, and tag services will be available in both options. So in terms of pacing, the hybrid classroom opportunity is teacher paced. And then the differentiation in the 100% online is that it is student paced, and you've heard both of those already this evening. In terms of community, the homeschool neighborhood school will be a part of the hybrid. So if that's a selection, just know that your student will be working through through their neighborhood school with neighborhood school peers in terms of who they're engaging with. If the online selection is the option, that's going to be an online cohort, but it'll be of like grade level students who are involved in that particular online program. And that may be from students from different schools across the district. The online learning platform, this is something that we're working to finalize this week. This is all about consistency. Consistency in terms of where you as parents and where students go to see communication, assessments, feedback, lessons, where you land, where those land is needs to be consistent in our district, and we're working towards that in terms of that decision this week. And that will house those kinds of things that I just discussed, including lessons and units, and including a third-party content provider and TTSD lessons. That third-party content provider means we are supporting our teachers in terms of curriculum, the next section down, by finalizing the recommendation for an online curriculum and multiple curriculums being vetted that will act as a support for our teachers to work from in terms of building out the most highest quality lessons possible alongside our TTSD curriculum. So in the hybrid, they'll be using the standards-based online learning courseware, again, that we'll finalize this week in terms of recommendation, and TTSD curriculum. And in the 100% online, students in that self-paced mode will be using that standard-based online learning courseware. In TTSD instructional programs, we wanted to make clear that in the hybrid, kids will have pre-kindergarten, pre-K will be available, two-way immersion, our TWE programming, international baccalaureate, career and technical education, and dual credit. Within that hybrid setting, they'll have the capabilities of engaging in those programs. In the 100% online, the distinction here is, and we really wanted to make sure this was something kids could engage in, even if that's the selection, they'll have the opportunity to participate virtually in those particular, in the two-way immersion programming, international baccalaureate programming, and dual credit with some limited courses. The caveat there is, if your child is in the 100% online self-paced programming and they are a two-way immersion student, for example, that two-way immersion experience then isn't self-paced. They will be engaging with their peers in a teacher-guided hybrid kind of opportunity. The electives offered right now at the elementary level, that's to be determined. We're still doing work around that. We have elective committees at work wrapping around what those offerings will look like in terms of PE, music, STEAM. We're still in the development stages of how that's going to unfold, whether that be virtually, mostly virtually, or face-to-face when students have that opportunity. So that's still to be determined, and we'll keep working on that. Most secondary school electives will be available and offered virtually in the hybrid situation. Online, 100%. Those electives will be offered through that courseware that we're purchasing. But we also want to be sure that we can do our best to connect kids to some electives that are offered in TTSD. An example would be as we work to understand how, like, for example, band, and giving kids opportunity, even though in the 100% self-paced programming, could still access that. So that's work that's in play right now as well. More to come on that. In terms of the teacher, the TTSD neighborhood school teachers are connected to the students in the hybrid. So your child who is in the hybrid situation has that programming, will be with their neighborhood school teacher. And in the 100%, it's a little different in that there will be TTSD teachers who are teachers of records connected to the subjects being taught, and TTSD teaching staff will be facilitating and connection points for students in that particular program. That staffing has yet to be determined, but will be as we start to learn more about who's thinking about engaging in the 100% online. In terms of counselors, TTSD neighborhood counselors, school counselors are both students in both of these programs will engage with their neighborhood school counselors, maintaining that connection. Enrollment in school. In either, again, you can see here hybrid or distance learning, you are enrolled in your neighborhood school. And grading is something that we're looking at additional guidance from ODE at some point down the line, but what we are going to be doing is standards-based grading for K-5 as we've done in the past. We're returning to our grading practices we've had in brick and mortar, A through F letter grades in 6 through 12. In terms of attendance, one of the things that we've learned is we are through our guidance, is to have daily attendance, and daily attendance will be taken. And as we develop the multiple ways to show attendance, we'll be understanding that better as we move forward and finalize plans, but daily attendance is a part of this, a part of both of the hybrid and the 100% online. And schedules, there's some nuancing here. In the hybrid situation, you will see your child will have a very clear-cut schedule in terms of start to finish of their instructional day. And the reason that we're talking about this right now, even though we're going to online initially out of the gate, is that, until it's safe to return, is that online, students in the hybrid who've selected the hybrid will be moving through that particular schedule at the beginning. In terms of the 100% online program, there is no set weekly schedule or class schedule. Again, it is self-paced and supported by teachers. But we are going to do this. We want to make sure in terms of the self-pacing and we want to make sure that we are really building in for the 100% online students. And if you'd move down just a little bit to where that was, I want to make sure it's understood that we are building in synchronous, meaning opportunities for students who are in that 100% online, building in opportunities. And if you keep going down towards the very bottom, that students have the opportunity to be face-to-face with their teacher, even in the 100% online. And because one of the things that we want to make sure of is that students, we're meeting students' IEPs, interventions through Title I, and other Title III, our English language development programming, even for students in our 100% online, having those teacher to student opportunities. And in terms of extracurricular, if you'd slide down just a little bit, it is the students in both hybrid and 100% online will be able to access TTSD neighborhood school extracurricular activities, clubs, athletics, affinity groups, etc. And I want to just draw our attention to the note in green that we are asking families to select a model for a one-year commitment, and thinking long-term that way, one-year commitment. But we know that we are also going to reevaluate after the first semester in terms of potential changes of where and how the student is getting their courseware and their connections. So that door is open after first semester opportunity. That would be in November for us to look at that with you as parents, depending on the situation. Okay. So with that, again, we'll continue to answer questions as they come in. As this unfolds, there's still a lot of work to be done, and your questions will help guide us as well. And we'll be looking at that FAQ to be updated so you can connect with questions you may not heard the specific answer for at this time. I want to, at this point, shift gears. And if you would move to the next slide, I want to introduce Jarvis Gomez, who is a principal of Deer Creek Elementary School, who's going to talk a little bit about the day in the life of a student at the elementary level, specific to programming. Jarvis.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the sun and staying cool. My name is Jarvis Gomez. As Director Robson said, I'm the principal at Deer Creek Elementary, and I'm just going to share with you what it's going to be like for an elementary student in the hybrid model. So let's say we have Jill, who's a second grader and is in cohort A. and is in a reading intervention. She's going to talk about what Jill's schedule might look like when coming to school. Let me first say that for elementary parents, there are two different schedules happening simultaneously. One is, and if I point this to the far left in the little pink box, is that we have K1 and they're coming to school in the hybrid model, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So this schedule that you see in front of you right now is the schedule that they would follow Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. For our 2nd through 5th graders, the blue circle you see there, this is the schedule in cohort A that they would follow on Monday and Tuesday. And then the next slides will show what's like the rest of the week. So a 2nd grader coming to school will arrive at school. They'll start with a class meeting with their peers in their class, and they'll do some check-ins. There'll be some social emotional learning. After that, they'll move into some reading instruction for about 90 minutes. That is with their cohort, whole group, small group, some interventions. I want to point out that 90 minutes is identical to the number of minutes that they would receive in a brick and mortar pre-COVID. Move into a math lesson that's about 60 minutes. That's grade level instruction with their cohort. Again, 60 minutes is the same amount of minutes that they received in brick and mortar. There'll be a lunch recess time. Lunch will be in their classroom. Recess has to be with their cohort. And then they would come back after that into do some content learning, whether that's social studies, science, health, or some writing instruction, and that is with their cohort. And then we move to the end of the day and they do a checkout with their teacher and then head home. As mentioned earlier from Dr. Robson, Director Robson, is that specials, we're still working on that. So that will come out a little bit later in their day. And then Wednesday is a day where there is no in-school instruction or anything. That will be at home. And if you look at the far left also in the pink rectangle there, it's for all grades. It's K1 included. So this is K5. Our core teachers will provide assignment schedule that's consistent across teacher teams. So in all of 2nd grade, those teachers will be presenting the same material. Students will be self-paced on Wednesdays and will have check-ins to monitor progress and provide support. And then students that are in intervention classes may receive services online from an adult on this day. Most likely that adult will be an instructional assistant that they have some contact with on that Wednesday. Next slide, please. And then what happens on Thursday, Friday? So remember, this is cohort A. The students now will be at home on Thursday and Friday. We would like them to attend that class meeting that their peers in cohort B are doing. So that will be more of a live virtual class time. Then we would like them to stay on for those first 30 minutes of reading instruction to just listen to the teacher so that they are getting have some reinforcement with reading instruction, and that will be live. There could be some live reading intervention at that time. And then the remainder 60 minutes is self-paced at home. Then later on, math will be 60 minutes, hopefully, of self-paced at home. And these are recommendations. And then they'll do some content work, science, social studies, health, writing instruction, and so forth. And then again, specials is to be determined that we may do some specials on Thursday and Friday as well. And that's what it'll look like for a student in cohort B. Think of cohort A, think about a student in cohort B, you just flip that. A student in cohort B will be at home Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they'll be at school Thursday, Friday, but they'll follow the same schedule. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Andrew Curl for middle school.
Thank you, Jarvis. Thank you, everybody. I hope you're all well. My name is Andrew Curl, and I'm the principal at Tualatin Middle School. And I would like to walk you through a hybrid schedule for Sam, who will be a 7th grader next year. So Sam is involved in our music program and has a reading intervention that requires some additional support. So Before Sam even arrives at middle school, we've spent the time to hand schedule Sam into a core teacher team of 2 teachers who will teach Sam their core content. So that'll be English, math, social studies, and science. And this should allow Sam to build a stronger relationship with teachers and peers without managing the expectations of too many adults. So the next slide. So Monday and Tuesday, so since Sam is in cohort A, their last name starts with G, they're going to be in the first cohort. So since Sam is in cohort A, they will have live instruction with their core teachers on Monday and Tuesday. Each day will begin with a scheduled live check-in where students will have a chance to build relationships as well as learn real skills about goal setting, organization, etc. And this will be a time for students to really make deep connections with their peers and adults, which we know is important for students like Sam. After Sam has a relationship check-in, they will have a break to stretch and grab a snack before starting their first core of the day, which will be a humanities class of either English or social studies. This might include a mini lesson, some breakout groups, and a breakdown of the assignments and projects that are coming up for independent practice throughout the week. Sam will have another chance to stretch and take a break before starting their second core class of the day, which will either be math or science. So regardless of whether we are in at home or in person in the hybrid model, there will be live instructors facilitating learning for these blocks on Mondays and Tuesdays for cohort A, while setting them up for success for the rest of the week. Next slide, please. So Wednesday, similar to elementary, on Wednesday, Sam will have a schedule of assignments to complete, but also might have a reading check-in with an instructional assistant on that day. The assignment schedule, calendar, and workload will be consistent across classrooms and middle schools. So for Sam, this is a day to complete core assignments as well as practice violin or log PE minutes. So there's next slide, please. And on Thursday and Friday, Sam will have the opportunity to have live virtual electives that will allow them to continue on a musical path. So Sam loved the violin as a 6th grader and will be able to continue violin in a virtual space with Mr. Lewis. Sam will also have live virtual PE instruction on one of these days. If Sam has an English language learner class or specifically designed instruction for special education, they might have an additional check-in on this Thursday or Friday. At the end of the day on Thursday and Friday, Sam will have a window of time to have a live check-in with the core teacher team from earlier in the week. And this will be a chance to check in, ask questions, receive additional support or feedback, and keep Sam on track with their learning. And that will be the middle school in a hybrid model. And I will turn it over to Brian Bailey from Tigard High School and Michael DeLurba from Tualatin High School.
All right, thank you, Andrew. And thanks everybody for being here. My name is Brian Bailey. I'm the principal of Tigard High School, and Michael and I are going to give a general overview of the high school in a hybrid model when we are able to return to campus. So we will get started with that. Next slide. My first caveat or preface with this is that, like Andrew said, and we're looking at all the levels, we still have some exact details to figure out with our schedule, but in a very general sense, this is what a day would look like for high school students at our comprehensive high schools. I also want to mention that we know that in a normal year, a student would take 8 classes every other day, 4 classes every other day over the course of a semester. For a total of 8 each semester. And in this model, what we learned in the spring and what we know to be true is that managing 8 classes is extremely difficult. And so we're going to look at a model where they would have 4 classes every day in some capacity each quarter, and then at each quarter they would rotate. These classes will be determined by student needs, their predetermined or planned out graduation plans. They will include, they'll be personalized for each student as they're pursuing or as they're moving towards graduation. It'll include our IB classes, our advanced classes, our support classes, world language, some CTE and electives and things like that. If we start on the left-hand side, similar to what we've seen from the other levels, cohort A would meet on Mondays and Tuesdays. They'd have an opportunity when we can come back on to campus to be in the building for those 2 days, while cohort B would be in the building on Thursdays and Fridays, similar to what we've seen, again, from the other levels. When they're not in the building on those other days, they will be working on their classes in an online model. So very generally speaking, in the beginning of the day, there will be an opportunity for a morning check-in. This will be a chance for students to get some additional help, get some clarification if they need it, and check in with their teachers. The first two courses of the day in this particular model, would be a couple of their core classes. So they would have probably 2 core classes each quarter. The students would be cohorted, and the teachers would actually move in between periods with a pretty decent break in between to allow kids to stretch their legs. Like Andrew said, grab a snack or just take a brain break. Lunch will be served in the building on those days. They'll either eat that in their classroom or in their building. What this means for our upperclassmen who have normally had an opportunity to go off campus for lunch, that lunch will, in order to maintain the cohorts and the contact status and the contact, they will stay on campus for those lunches. The afternoon, they would have 1 or 2 elective courses in a new cohort. And again, that will be dependent upon their graduation needs, their program needs, their interests in electives, and so forth. And then they would be cohorted and receive that instruction in the building with their group. This could change, and as you see the note on the bottom, the order of the courses may change based on the students, based on the cohorts, as we start to finalize the master schedule for everybody to make that work for our teachers, for our students, and to make sure that students are progressing where they need to be. And with that, I will hand it over to Michael Delorva to talk a little bit more about our model.
So if we could just back up a slide for just 1 second. One thing I wanted to add in that Brian was talking about is that regardless if we are in hybrid or if we are in comprehensive distance learning, this will be the structure of what our high school schedule looks like. And with that, we can move on to the next slide. So you have a good understanding of how many classes your students will be involved in, how many teachers they'll be interacting with. As Andrew had mentioned, Wednesdays will be largely a collaboration day. Not only is this for us to allow for our teachers to meet more frequently and find consistency across the courses and the experiences students are having not only in our individual high schools, but across high schools, is something we learned from parent feedback in phase 3 is that we needed to tighten up our experience for our students and provide really strong, rigorous coursework. And so by having meeting times on Wednesday for teachers to meet across courses and across our high schools and provide that time is really important for collaboration while we deeply clean the school. One of the pieces for our cohorts to switch over is to really hit a deep cleaning of our building and the touch points in all of the areas so that it's safe for us to switch cohorts. Students, as Brian mentioned, will be self-paced on Wednesdays, and they will have core check-ins daily with their instructors to monitor progress and provide support digitally, but moving through whatever the assignments are for that given week. And then lastly, of course, we want to look at any opportunity to provide support classes outside of the additional coursework or outside of the regular courses students take. If students are getting other services and they need additional support from an adult online that day is when we can build that time in. So those are all elements we're looking at for those additional Wednesdays. And know that this is a fluid process as we develop these systems, and we'll certainly have some learning as we get this started in the fall. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Bernard. I'm the IT director for the school district, and we're going to take a moment to get some community feedback. Thor, if you could bring up the side-by-side comparison of hybrid versus 100% online. I'm going to give a start to explaining some of the confusion that may be present from the questions that we're seeing, but just for clarity, the hybrid classroom follows a schedule. So it'd be like your child is in school. So they would be following a time schedule, and if and when the COVID situation allows us for children to return to school, that would be the course, the model that students would allow to come back in the classroom. Whereas the 100% online school is more student-paced or self-paced, so it's more independently geared, and students can work with some guardrails through the course and the curriculum as they need to, and they can reach out for assistance with an instructor and be checking in with instructors weekly to see how they're doing. So we're going to take a moment with that explanation, and I'm going to pause to see if Dr. Sue would like to add anything more, to offer up a poll just to see, to get a temperature feedback on how our community is feeling right now. We've got about 1,400 community members on, and it gives us a lot of insight to see where people are so that we can plan accordingly.
Thank you, Director Bernard. Could you bring up the slide? Let's just take elementary as an example here for a moment. So I believe that's the next slide, couple of slides down from the hybrid, the current slide that's up. Yeah, I'm sorry. If you go forward to a day in the life of, in the elementary, yeah, next slide, next one. There we are, all right. As a parent, if I choose the hybrid model for my student and conditions do not allow us to be in the classroom, this schedule here, I still know that I need to have my student ready to start the day, though it is at home, in front of their computer or iPad, ready to start with their class meeting, then transitioning to 90 minutes of reading instruction, then transitioning to 60 minutes of math, then taking a break while still at home, having lunch and a time to get the wiggles out, and then at a set time, come back for science, social studies, health, or writing instruction, and then being dismissed, though still at home on their computer, at a set time. On Wednesdays, all students, K-12, will have work online that they will do while teachers are preparing lessons and using that time for prep, but students will still have access and check-ins that will be given potentially by our instructional assistants to ensure that they have the supports and directions that they need. So if I'm choosing hybrid as a parent, that daily schedule for my student will run either in the classroom when conditions are safe or online until conditions become safe. Thanks, Director Bernard.
Thank you, Dr. Ricky Smith. Hopefully all of you see a poll that just popped up onto your screen. And I will read it so that Gigi can do an interpretation for us. Given the information you have been given, what option do you feel is the best choice for you and your family? The first option is hybrid model, which is teacher-paced. The second option is 100% online model, which is student or self-paced. And the third one is undecided at this time. We'll leave this up for a little bit. We've got 73%. We were up to 84% last week, so we'll see if we can get past that. Again, if it hasn't been said recently, thank you for the clarification and the questions. Thank you for the upvoting so we can prioritize questions as we answer them. We will be answering them after the meeting on our website. There are currently 420, and that would be a challenge to go through. But again, the way that you can provide us with a priority on what you're thinking and feeling is to upvote those. And hopefully some of those questions are getting answered as we continue through the presentation. All right, we're at 79%. I'm gonna give it just a few moments to see if we can get over the 80 mark. Ah, okay, there we go. Oh, now they're coming in. All right, I'm gonna give us 10 more seconds and then I'm gonna close the poll. All right, 1 second, and I'm gonna end the poll. So sharing the results, just to give, in case you weren't following along, it looks like we've got about 52% of our attendees currently that are watching this evening choosing or thinking they would choose a hybrid model, which is the teacher-paced. We have about 17% thinking that it would be best for their child to attend the 100% online model for the year, and about 32% that are undecided at this time. So that gives us really great information about what information we're sharing with you and how our plans are being communicated and what we still need to do. Appreciate that. If we could move to the slide that says community feedback, I think we'll pick up from there. There you go. One more. Thank you. So thank you again for taking the poll and giving us a sense of your feedback at this time. We know there's a lot of questions and things that you need to think about or talk about amongst your family. So we want to give you an idea of when we will be asking for you to make a choice about which direction you would like to go and what best fits your family. Next slide, please. So we will have some previews available for the online courseware by the end of the week. They will be demos that you can, probably videos that you can preview and go back and forth. They'll be available in English and in Spanish. And we will have an example of what it would look like at an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. We'll also call out in those videos what it would look like for 100% online, what that self-paced would look like, and then what that might look like if you are going to participate in a hybrid model. Next slide, please. And then we are going to ask for you to make a selection. Given the information that you have had and received from the district through emails and website and social media, the presentations this week, we'll have another one next Tuesday. But beginning August 3rd, which is next Monday through the 8th, we'll be asking you to make your selection of a hybrid model for each of your children or 100% online model using Parent View. Many of you already have an account, and we will be working through those of you that do not over the next week to 10 days and reaching out to you to make sure you know how to log in and make that selection. So much more information to come around how you can log into Parent View and what that process will look like. Once you do log in, it will just pop up right away. You won't have to find it. So the key is just knowing if you have your Parent View account, maybe wipe off the cobwebs and see if you can figure out what that password is, and we'll be helping you in the meanwhile in the next week or so with some additional communication. Next slide, please. And now I turn it over to Tracy Rose, Director of Communications, and Zinnia Un, Director of Equity and Inclusion. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Rose. I'm the Director of Communications and Community Relations, and I'm going to be joined by Director Zinnia Un, who is our Director of Equity and Inclusion. Next slide, please. I am going to share with you some upcoming opportunities for you to gather more information. I know there's lots of questions. I know people have specific questions relative to the needs and levels of your students. So first and foremost, know that we're building a page on our website dedicated to all of the resources relative to our reentry plan. Go to our website and click on the Ready School Safe Learners icon, and you'll go to the page that will continually be updated with information that will be important to how we're going to reopen schools. We're also taking all of the questions we're getting from all of our meetings, and we're gathering them together. They're informing this work. We're creating a high-level FAQ that will live on our district website. So we will build that as we go. After tonight, we'll use the questions to even further that list so that we can keep up and answer as many questions as possible. As you've seen in this presentation tonight, our names and email addresses are attached. We welcome you to contact us individually if you have specific questions for the areas that you've heard from. We also are working with a culturally responsive communication team who is hard at work to make sure that these meetings, our community meetings, all of our information online will be translated into the languages that are represented throughout our district. And then we have some upcoming information sessions that are scheduled that I want to speak a little bit more about. So next slide, please. So we know now that we are in, we've had 2 meetings, almost done with the second meeting. We'll have one more community-wide meeting, but we'll still be digging deeper into this plan. So please watch for more information relative to meetings specifically to level, meaning elementary, middle, or high school. Please also watch to hear from your principals for meetings that will be scheduled for your individual school community, so you can ask questions that are real specific to your school community. And then we have a calendar of meetings coming up that will be listed on our website that we're calling our Family Affinity Connection Series. And I'm going to turn it over to Director Im to share with you that calendar.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. So first of all, I wanted to explain what affinity groups mean. So affinity groups basically mean a group of folks who share identity markers or share some commonalities. So what we learned in spring, as well as distance learning of phase 3, was that our families who have very specific needs needed some more information that were directly aligned to them. So what we are hoping to do is offer spaces for our Latinx, Hispanic, Chicano families, our Black students, families of Black students, our Asian Pacific Islander families, Indigenous and tribal families, LGBTQSIA families, two-way immersion families, and our students with special needs families to have time to really do a check-in. For our students with special needs families, Student Services will be hosting a family session every Tuesday in August to hear more about your concerns and also mill through some of your questions. So next slide, please. So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you to Gigi Escobar, who has been interpreting for us in Africa, Ramirez Lopez as well. This is our culturally responsive communication team. Thank you, Tim Blackburn. He is our English language development director. Martine Alvarez is our culturally responsive coordinator at Tualatin High School. And Gigi Escobar is our culturally responsive coordinator at Tigard High. Africa Ramirez Lopez is the administrative assistant at Student Services, and you have the communication team, Lisa Burton, Tracy Rose, and myself connecting with all of you. We wanted to make sure that you had our contact information because as we push out information for the Family Affinity Series and you see emails and connections from us, please respond and let us know that if you can join us in those sessions. Next slide, please. Director Rose.
Yes. So just a reminder of where you can find our website is ttsdschools.org. Again, look for the Ready Schools Safe Learners icon and click on that and you will get all of the information as we include it. And today it's been updated even further. We will be also pushing out via our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. As we continue through our learning with our affinity groups, we'll also be starting some social networks relative to our specific family communities so that we can make sure that everyone is hearing from us. We are recording our community meetings like tonight and like last week's, and that will also live on our website. So if you know of folks that have missed the meeting, please direct them to the website so that they can watch tonight's entire presentation. And with that, next slide. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Sue to close out the evening.
Again, I want to say thank you to all who have joined us here this evening and for the questions and comments that you posted in the chat. We certainly understand that this is a very challenging time for everyone and that there's a lot of information that we've given you this evening. And again, we truly appreciate the feedback that you give us as it helps us to refine our our guidance and our planning to best serve you and your students. While we have asked this evening for your consideration of a one-year commitment, that has to do with our staffing needs and staffing stability to make sure that both models are staffed appropriately for the number of students served. We also understand that there may be a need to shift based on your family's needs, and we'll be working to provide that space within the first semester so that we can get a sense of how many may wish to shift, or if metrics allow that we may be able to be back in building in a larger capacity than current metrics allow us to be. So please be looking for more information regarding that and how what we need from you to be able to ensure that we have staff in the right places to serve your students. With that, we will continue to gather your questions. I want to say thank you also to those of you who have reached out specifically. And we appreciate your patience while we work through our email length of emails in trying to address your specific concerns. And where things are more by theme, we can answer that in the FAQ. We will roll your question up into the FAQ as well. I also wish to say a profound thank you to our teachers who are on this call today and who have been a part of the planning that you've seen this evening across the board. They have given many hours of time and effort. I would offer to you, those of you who are concerned, particularly about online instruction, that our experience in the spring was as if every single teacher became a first-year teacher all over again in a very quick fashion. And we had to pivot quickly to addressing the needs that we had not intended to have to address last year. There has been a tremendous amount of learning that this organization has done. And we want to again thank you for those of you who have answered our surveys as either a parent or as a student or as a teacher. We have taken that information and have used it to guide a tight process, whether it is 100% online for those of you who choose that option, or whether those of you choose the hybrid, which uses both in-class as well as online instruction, but following a very specific daily schedule of instruction for your child. So with that, we say thank you. We look forward to being with you next Tuesday, which will be the last of our 3 meetings. That's August 4th at 6 p.m. And we look forward to being with you that evening. And we wish you all health and wellness and safety as we navigate these coming days. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.